Live from New York. It's a show that's upset about UConn losing.
Oh.
And upset about any Danny Hurley slander.
No,
that
it's
comes
not
his
slander. You cannot. Let me give Mark Titus a shout out. Danny Hurley conducts himself like the wrestler that goes to a town and gets on stage and is like, this town sucks and everyone here are hicks. And then the fans of Danny Hurley are like, why does everyone hate our guy? He's intentionally annoying. He is a heel. He wants to be hated. So you can't then be mad when people are like, you know what? He succeeded at being hated.
Duke's second-round matchup is lopsided as their first, blasting Baylor by 23. Next up, Arizona in the Sweet 16. But Duke is favored to win it all. Here are the odds for, we did top 10. Duke, Florida, just down my Huskies. Houston, Auburn, Tennessee. Bama, Texas Tech, Michigan State, Arizona, and then Maryland, which survived a buzzer beater. Is this Duke's tournament to lose, bro? What is this? You picked Duke? That's what you're doing?
Something wrong. I picked the winner. I mean, you guys are they're the number one seed. I can't
we're
pick
not
them.
there yet. Bro,
we're there. We're there. Duke is the best team in the country.
Yes.
Yes,
Period.
that's conventional wisdom.
Well, then why didn't you pick them? Why didn't you pick them?
What?
They are now, of course, in a one and done, any old thing can happen.
Yeah.
But this team looks far and away the best team in the country. Okay. They got the best player in the country, Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
But anybody that thinks they're just Cooper Flagg is not watching, right? Like, they got the 7'2" guy, Maluach, I can say his name. They got 3 lottery picks.
That's
the kid could nipple, and the 3 lottery picks are freshmen. And then they got their junior and senior, Proctor, who can shoot the threes. And so they got a good combination of great elite talent in lottery picks and then veterans who really know how to play. They shoot well. They defend well. Like, there's nothing they can't do. And so, yeah, they're the best team in the country. Now, again, anything can happen in a one and done. But I don't see them lose. And everybody's saying, oh, they didn't play anybody because of Mount St. Mary's. Well, Baylor's got a lottery pick themselves.
Baylor's got a top 5
a pretty good. Yeah, they're a pretty good team. So Duke, they look to me, honestly, a lot like Connecticut looked last year. Like just head and shoulders above everybody else. And the other thing is size. And
more highly touted pros than UConn had.
Oh, absolutely.
3 lottery
absolutely.
picks.
Yeah. And they're big, too. Like, obviously, Maluach is 7'2", but then they got their smallest starters are 6'5".
Yeah.
So they got it all. They should win it.
I mean,
a lot of people didn't have to.
Y'all should have listened to me.
So listen, I picked Tennessee to win the whole thing because that's who I'm rooting for. I have kind of friend ties there, and it felt like they had a shot. But Duke is obviously the best team, and Duke's been the best team. And Brew illustrated, their NBA talent. I think it's even more instructive to look at we took our friend John Fanta's latest mock draft, and it's there's consensus pretty much about the guys, top 20-ish, and then so here is left in the tournament projected first-round picks. Duke's got 3.
Yep.
The other 15 teams have 6. With none of them having more than 1. Now, BYU has another guy, but he's not playing, so it's so that's it. And when you look at projected top 20 picks, and it is, again, pretty consistent, Duke's got half of them. And so I know it's not just that, and that's not always the case. And, the team I picked, Tennessee's got none of those guys. Sometimes you can, find ways there.
Experience,
right, and Michigan State's got a kid who could go in the first round. But, again, Duke walking into every game that they play with the best player, almost every game as far as projection, the second best player, and a lot of these games with the third best player, to me, it would be shocking if they are not in the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
Truly shocking. And again, it's not like the bracket is opened way up for them. You got to beat Arizona. You got to beat Alabama. Those are the top, the seeds have held, so to speak. And I feel like it would be, I know the odds say they're plus 230. It does right now feel to me like it should Duke versus the field should be about even money. I know it's not because it's the one and done thing, but I think Duke is far and away the best team, and I also think they earned it, but they have the best path in that, Houston's really good. But Houston, assuming they win this round, is going to have to play either a Tennessee or a Kentucky team, which are both really, really good. And so Auburn having to deal with Michigan State, I don't think Alabama is quite the competition of the other 2 seeds. Now, St. John's is out, of course, I think it is definitively Duke's tournament.
I also think, Maluach, I think he can do things that they're not really using him for. I think he's better than he's showing just because they're so balanced. They don't need him to be a big scorer or anything. So there's that capability there. And I also think, Nick, in probably the past 10 years or so, maybe a little more, where you saw a lot of these mid-majors make deep runs, it was because even though a Duke or a Kentucky or North Carolina, whoever, had the blue chip freshman talent.
They had guys who had been together.
Yeah, guys that had been together 3-4 years who were experienced, not really NBA players, but experienced, had chemistry, played smart. Now that's changing because of NIL.
Yeah.
So even now, some of these teams don't have the continuity that they used to have because some of their players are going to other schools, better
a lot
pastures,
of the best guys, for mid-major are moving. And now, one thing going against Duke, and then I know we can move on, a kid who has experience against Duke, a kid who beat Duke in Coach K's last game there, Caleb Love, now plays for Arizona. And so, you know what I mean? And so that, so he has a ton of confidence. He just played great in this last round, and he is standing between them and the Elite Eight. But even if Love does what he did in the round of 32 in the Sweet 16 and scores damn near 30, Duke, to me, just is too overpowering.
Okay, 2025 has not been kind to three-peats. UConn's three-peat bid dies at the hands of Walter Clayton and the #1 seeded Gators. Huskies coach Danny Hurley captured in the tunnel, and he was none too pleased with the officiating. He didn't have to do that. Just giving Baylor a shout
Go
out.
get him, Baylor.
Try, Baylor. You were infuriated by this.
Listen, we're going to put your mayor of fairness to the test here, buddy. Do we agree blaming refs is loser behavior?
Oftentimes we've said that before.
Have you said that every single time that has come up in the past?
I'm not a huge fan of blaming.
Okay, do we agree that organizations, that the leader sets a culture from the top down? And so when you see the reporting that the guy who recorded that video, that the UConn sports information director came to him and said, if you don't delete it, quote, I'll ruin your life.
Wow.
That maybe that level of I can get away with this type of bullying for a journalist.
That seems like a lot.
That's terrible. If
What?
that's true.
But no, that definitively is true.
What are you saying?
I am saying, what do you mean? Of course of course. I am saying that Danny Hurley has leaned into intentionally the villain, heel, in your face, aggro kind of mold. And I don't think it is coincidental that then, the people that work for him are doing the same type of thing. But I think we also all agree, okay, if you want to say it's a one-off and it's a coincidence, that's fine. Set that aside. I think we also all agree that when you have done a ton of winning, the first time you finally lose, instead of pointing, thumbs, pointing fingers, saying to the Baylor kids as they're walking out, the refs might screw you like you screwed us, is sore loser stuff. And that's fine, but what I don't like at all is this idea that you can intentionally be the irritant and the heel and then also be annoyed when people act as such. Danny Hurley earlier in the year when he was asked, how do you think, what do you think about the press? And he went on a little rant about the media being unfair, and then the guy was like, I meant the full court press you're going to deal with. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I just think the media's been so unfair. I think him whining about the national media, being unfair to him when nobody's been unfair to him. We have met your energy with similar. And so I just think it's a little bit trying to have it both ways. And I think the two-time defending champ losing a game because they made one basket in the final 6.5 minutes from the 7-minute mark to the 30-second mark, blaming the refs is loser stuff. He's a great coach, but it's loser stuff. And I think you would feel that way for any coach other than UConn's.
Yes. I think it's hard to say it's a loser. I don't approve of blaming the refs. Am I willing to say it's loser stuff when he's the back-to-back national champion and had won 13 straight tournament games? It's tough for me to balance that. It's a little bit of like the narrative around Draymond, like can't win like that. Like, no, actually you can.
No, I don't think
actually you
people
can
ever
do it
said
a lot.
You can't win like that with Draymond. I think people say they don't like it.
They don't like it.
Yeah.
So why not? Because
I think some people have felt that way. About Draymond.
Okay, well, sorry, I don't mean
but
to
I'm saying, like,
go ahead.
You might not like the means to an end, but that's what it is. It's not great, and he's not perfect. And 10 minutes later, he was in the press conference crying about how special the team is and how he loves the team. So if you want to look at this in a vacuum, it's not great. If we looked at the 10 minutes later when he's weeping and saying how much he loves the team and the team changed his life, I think you look at it differently. He's a full character. He's neither hero nor heel. And if you like UConn, you like the winning and you embrace
He's a great coach.
The dichotomy of that. But both exist. That's what he is.
And I don't think, Nick, he leans into, like, I'm going to be the villain. I'm going to be I think that's who he is.
Oh.
I think that's his personality.
Can I
think he purposely leans into that?
In the Creighton game, when he was getting people were chanting at him, not even the players, but chanting at him. And he said, I'll quote it, 2 rings, 2 rings, 2 rings, 2 rings, Baldy.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying.
Bald, but I'm not saying later he said he liked that. He's like, that's college basketball.
Like it, but I also think that's just his personality. I don't think he said, you know what? I'm going to create this character and be this guy that people hate. I think that's just who he is.
Okay.
And so, here, first of all, let's look at this graphic because they didn't lose because of the refs. All right, here's the graphic. They did have more fouls, and Florida went to the foul line a lot more. But look, Florida also shot way better from the field and way better from 3. It was a close game. I thought UConn actually played well.
They played really well.
Yeah, they had a great
shot
chance.
down the stretch.
Right, and so it wasn't the refs. But he said in his post-game presser, too, he said that when you're winning like this, you struggle with ego. And that's what that was. When he said that, he blamed the refs, that was his ego. Because as you said, it's like, I can't fathom somebody beat us. They did not go into that game thinking, oh, we're facing the number 1 seed. They went in thinking they're going to win. And I think his ego, he couldn't fathom that they just got beat. Now, that type of behavior, the language, you guys know I don't use that language. Anybody that's played sports past at high school or above has heard that language.
I'm not worried about the cursing.
That's no big deal.
And listen, I don't like the trying to eat out of both hands of this. I don't like if UConn fans and UConn folks want to be like, he's a jerk, but he's our jerk.
Sure.
And he's great. Right. Which, by the way, he's unabashedly great. He is. I don't really know a ton about how you make the College Basketball Hall of Fame. I would have to imagine he's already in. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so all of that is true. Would he be this effective if he wasn't from the first game of the season in Maui, totally unhinged, to the final moments of the season, totally unhinged? I don't know. So there's no way for me. Maybe if you take that away from him, he's not as good. So this we have to be intensity. Fine, so be it. But don't act like that you can act that way, intentionally provocative, talking trash to fans, screaming, losing your mind at the officials, even by coach standards to, in the highest percentile, whining about the officiating and the final game of the year when that's not why you lost. And then it's a crusade against him. You cannot. That's why I said off the top of the show the thing Mark Titus said that I totally agree with. The wrestler that gets on stage and, mocks the city they're in doesn't then be like, why is everyone booing me? You are trying to get booed. You are trying to elicit this type of reaction. And I also think his comments, now I don't know, listen, I don't know who they were directed at, but I didn't see a lot of, when he said the local media was nice, but the national media was so unfair all year. Where? Who have been the people saying Hurley stinks? Were the national media that was unfair, the people saying, UConn's not a real contender this year? Those people were right. That wasn't unfair commentary. That was accurate commentary. And so I don't get it. And I really don't, I don't think anyone would have liked if the Chiefs had lost the Texans game and the Chiefs were whining about refs as the back-to-back champs coming off that level of success. And I think that this is a similar thing. Whining about officiating is always poor. It's even more poor when you have had that level of success.
Sure.
You would hate him if he wasn't the UConn coach.
Probably. Meanwhile, Maryland, Colorado State. Terrapins down 71-70 before 6'10 freshman Derek Queen banks it in for the win. He demanded the ball in the timeout. Some fans demanding that refs should have waved this off and called a travel. Drew, what was your take?
Well, look, watching the game, I was watching this live. The thought of a travel did not even cross my mind. Did not even, for a second think, no. Great play, great shot. He took 2.5 steps after the gather. You're only supposed to get to take 2. And I guess technically by the letter of the law, he traveled. But I watch more NBA basketball than college. And the rules are the same, both levels. But in the NBA, you see this and then some actually sometimes. But you see this all the time. So I didn't even think, they didn't even cross my mind. And I am so glad they didn't call it.
Of course.
Because it was not he gathered. I know some people are saying, well, he got a gather step. I think after he gathered, he still took the 2.5 steps. But to me, that is not a travel. It was a great play by the kid. It nullified the great play on the play before by Colorado State, the basket. But no, I'm glad they didn't call it. But I guess technically it may have been. But there were probably a ton of travels during that game where guys took 2.5 steps.
You know who also did not think it was a travel in real time? A single person on the Colorado State team.
Right.
Court or bench or anyone. No, this was not an instance where you see everyone oh, he stepped out or, oh, he traveled. It was, I thought, great defense and better offense. And it is, Wilds, I think you'll agree with me on this. This being a story is symptomatic of a bigger problem in how we consume sports right now, which is,
was the social power of social media.
Yes, exactly. People, trick themselves about what they actually think. I think maybe 5% of people watching this game, when they were watching that live, travel even crossed their mind. If that.
I think that's high.
5% max. It didn't even occur to me. Mm-hmm. I think nearly 100% of people watching this game, if they had called a travel and waved it off, would be saying it was a travesty, that it was outrageous. How could you do it? But now this morning, I think if you ask 100 people about this that watched it, I think 1 in 3 are like, oh, it was brutal. Colorado State got screwed. Because they...
Or at least they're bringing up the travel.
They're bringing it up. And so it's just because, right after the game, the Wright account promotes it, people start talking about it, and in your brain, you're like, oh, maybe that's what it was. If you just watched that game and didn't, never logged on to Twitter and hadn't watched any other shows, and now you're watching us, you probably never knew that that there was controversy surrounding it.
This morning, I wasn't on social media after the game,
Yes.
right? And when you guys brought up the traveling, I was like,
Brew didn't know what game
I didn't
we were
even
talking
know
about.
it was a controversy about this. I was like, what?
But then you called it a travel.
Yeah, then I really analyzed it. I'm glad they didn't call it.
It would have been,
because it was a great play by this kid, and
but
it's 2.5 steps. You see that all the time in basketball.
It's just
all the time.
Also, football, basketball in particular, sports fans, we have to decide: do we want to enjoy close games, or do we want to always just talk about calls that were or weren't made?
Right.
Because with every angle being available and slow motion and instant reaction to things, every single close sporting event we have, we can turn it into, ref screwed somebody. And that is the worst way to consume sports, in my opinion.
He really didn't.
On some replays,
He
it looks
didn't
like
push off at all.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.